The morning started like any other outside Buckingham Palace. Tourists crowded the iron gates, phones raised, cameras flashing. Children tugged at their parents' sleeves. Street vendors sold postcards and Union Jack flags. And standing perfectly still in his red tunic and bearskin hat was Guardsman Daniel Reed. He had been on duty for 2 hours. His boots were polished to a mirror shine. His rifle rested against his shoulder. His face showed nothing. No smile, no blink, no emotion. That was the job. Stand, watch, protect. No matter what, most people respected that. They took photos from a distance. They whispered to each other about how disciplined the guards were. But there were always a few who wanted more. A few who thought it was funny to test them. Daniel had seen it all. Tourists waving hands in his face. Kids poking his legs. Adults making jokes. He never reacted. That was the training. That was the pride. You could endure anything, but today was different. Around midday, a man appeared near the gate. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black jacket and a crooked grin. His eyes were bloodshot. His walk was unsteady. He smelled like cheap beer and cigarettes. A small crowd noticed him, but kept their distance. The man staggered closer. He pointed at Daniel and laughed. "Look at this one," he slurred to no one in particular. "Thinks he's so tough, standing there like a statue." Daniel didn't move. His eyes stayed forward. His grip on the rifle stayed firm. The man stepped closer. "Hey, I'm talking to you. Still nothing." "What? You deaf? Or just stupid?" A few tourists stopped recording. Some parents pulled their children back. An older woman whispered to her husband, "Someone should say something." But no one did. The man was now just a foot away. His breath was sour. His fists were clenched. I said, "Look at me." Daniel's jaw tightened. His training told him to stay still. His instincts told him something was about to go very wrong, and then it happened. The man swung. His fist connected with the side of Daniel's face, just below the cheekbone. The crack echoed across the courtyard. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Phones shot up. Someone screamed. Daniel's head snapped to the side. Pain exploded through his skull. His vision blurred for a second. The taste of blood filled his mouth. But he didn't fall. He didn't drop his rifle. And he didn't stay still. What happened next would be caught on a dozen cameras. It would be shared across the world within hours. And it would remind everyone watching of one simple truth. A royal guard is never defenseless. The man stood there, grinning, expecting nothing. He had no idea what was coming. Daniel's eyes locked onto him. Cold, focused, deadly calm. And in that split second, everything changed. If you want to see what happens when discipline meets fury, make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss what comes next. The crowd held its breath. The man's grin started to fade, and Daniel Reed made a choice that would define the rest of his day. Daniel's training kicked in before his thoughts could catch up. The protocol was clear. If physically attacked, a guard had the right to defend the post and himself. But it had to be controlled, measured, professional. This would be all three in one smooth motion. Daniel stepped forward. His left hand released the rifle, letting it swing safely on its strap. His right arm came up in a blur. And before the drunk man could even register what was happening, Daniel's fist slammed into his jaw. The sound was sharp, brutal, final. The man's head whipped back. His eyes rolled. His legs buckled. And then he dropped. Not stumbled, not staggered, dropped, like a puppet with its strings cut. He hit the pavement hard. His mouth hung open. Blood trickled from his split lip. 2 teeth skittered across the stone like dice. The crowd froze. For 3 full seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of London traffic and the flutter of flags in the wind. Then the chaos started. People shouted. Cameras zoomed in. A woman screamed, "Oh my God!" A teenage boy laughed nervously and said, "Did you see that?" Daniel didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He simply adjusted his rifle back into position, straightened his posture, and returned to his post. His face was stone again, unreadable, as if nothing had happened. But his knuckles throbbed. His cheek was swelling, and his heart was pounding like a war drum. Two other guards rushed over from their posts. One knelt beside the man, checking for signs of serious injury. The other stood beside Daniel, speaking quietly. "You all right, Reed?" Daniel nodded once. "Yes, sir. Good hit. Thank you, sir." Within minutes, palace security arrived. Then police. The drunk man was still on the ground, groaning, trying to sit up. His face was pale. His eyes were glassy. He kept touching his mouth, confused, as if he couldn't understand why his teeth were missing. An officer crouched beside him. "Can you hear me, mate?" The man mumbled something incoherent. "You're under arrest for assault. Do you understand?" The man blinked. Then he started crying. Not out of pain, out of shame, out of the sudden, crushing realization that he had just made the worst decision of his life in front of hundreds of witnesses and countless cameras. The officer helped him to his feet. His hands were cuffed behind his back. Blood stained his shirt. His legs wobbled as he was led away. The crowd watched in silence. Some recorded every second. Others whispered to each other, replaying what they'd just seen. One little boy tugged his father's hand. "Dad, why did the guard hit him?" His father knelt down. "Because that man did something very wrong. And sometimes when you do something wrong, there are consequences." The boy thought about that. Then he looked back at Daniel, standing tall and still, and said, "The guard is a hero." His father smiled. Yes, he is." But Daniel didn't feel like a hero. He felt shaken, angry, relieved. All at once he had done his job. He had protected himself and the palace. But there was something else gnawing at him. Something he hadn't expected, the man's face. The moment before the punch, the desperation in his eyes, Daniel had seen that look before. Not on duty, but somewhere else. Somewhere darker. And as the crowd slowly began to disperse and the adrenaline started to fade, Daniel realized this wasn't over. Because the man on the ground wasn't just some random drunk, he was someone Daniel knew. Daniel's shift ended 2 hours later. He was escorted inside the palace by a senior officer who asked him the same questions 3 different ways. "Are you injured? Do you need medical attention? Do you want to press charges?" No, and yes. The officer nodded and made notes. Then he looked up. "You did everything right," read textbook response. "You should be proud." Daniel nodded, but his mind was somewhere else. He changed out of his uniform in the locker room. His reflection in the mirror showed a purple bruise blooming along his cheekbone. His knuckles were scraped and swollen. He splashed cold water on his face and tried to steady his breathing. That man, the one he'd punched, the one being dragged away in handcuffs. His name was Tommy Greaves. Daniel hadn't recognized him at first. It had been years. Tommy looked older now, heavier, broken, but those eyes, that crooked grin, it was him. They had grown up on the same estate in South London. Same street. Same school. Same life. Tommy had been wild even then. Funny, reckless, always looking for trouble. But he wasn't cruel. He wasn't this. Daniel finished dressing and walked out into the cool evening air. His phone buzzed. Messages from friends. Links to videos. The footage was already online. Millions of views. Comments flooded in. Respect to that guard. Don't mess with the king's soldiers. That punch was legendary. Daniel turned off his phone. He didn't want to see it. Didn't want to be celebrated for knocking out someone he once called a friend. He took the tube home, keeping his head down. No one recognized him out of uniform. He was just another tired Londoner heading back to his flat, but his mind kept circling back. Why was Tommy there? Why attack a guard? Why now? The next morning, Daniel called the station. He asked if he could speak to Tommy. The officer on the line hesitated. That's unusual. You're the victim. Why would you want to see him? I just need to know why. There was a long pause. Then the officer sighed. He's being held until arraignment. I can arrange a visit, but it's your choice. I'll be there. 2 hours later, Daniel sat in a cold, windowless room at the police station. The walls were gray. The table was metal. The air smelled like disinfectant and regret. The door opened. Tommy shuffled in, hands cuffed, face swollen. His left eye was blackened. His jaw was bruised. He looked at Daniel and stopped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Tommy sat down. He stared at the table. "Danny," he muttered. "Didn't know it was you? Would it have mattered?" Tommy shrugged. "Probably not." Daniel leaned forward. "What happened to you, Tommy? Last I heard, you were working construction. Had a kid on the way?" Tommy's face crumpled. His voice cracked. "Lost the job. Lost the girl. Lost everything. So you thought you'd pick a fight with a royal guard?" "I wasn't thinking." Tommy's hands shook. "I was drunk. Angry. Thought maybe if I did something big, something crazy, people would notice. Maybe I'd feel alive again. You got noticed?" Tommy laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I'm famous now." "For being an idiot?" Daniel sat back. He wanted to be angry. He wanted to feel justified. But all he felt was sad. You could have killed someone, Tommy. You could have ruined your life even more than it already is. "I know." Tommy wiped his eyes. "I'm sorry, mate. I really am." Daniel stood up. He looked down at the man who used to race him down their street on stolen bikes, who used to share chips on the corner, who used to laugh until his sides hurt. "Get help, Tommy. Real help. Not just for you. For whoever's still out there who cares about you." Tommy nodded. He couldn't look up. Daniel knocked on the door. The officer let him out. As he walked through the station, something stirred inside him. Not pity, not forgiveness, but understanding. Sometimes people lash out because they're drowning, and sometimes the person who stops them is the only one who remembers they were once capable of swimming, but the story wasn't finished. Because that night, Daniel would receive a phone call that would change everything he thought he knew about that punch. Daniel was halfway through a frozen dinner when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello?" A woman's voice, shaky, desperate. "Is this Daniel Reed?" "Who's asking?" "My name is Sarah. Sarah Greaves. I'm Tommy's sister." Daniel set down his fork. "How did you get this number?" "I called the palace. Told them it was urgent. They gave me a contact number for victims." Her voice broke. "Please, I need to talk to you." "About my brother." Daniel hesitated. Then he sighed. "Go ahead." "Not on the phone." "Can we meet?" "Just for 10 minutes. I'll come to you. Anywhere you want." "Why?" "Because you're the only person who can help him now." 20 minutes later, Daniel sat on a bench in a quiet park near his flat. The streetlights cast long shadows. The air was cold and still. A woman approached, mid-30s, tired eyes. She wore a worn jacket and carried a canvas bag. She sat beside him without asking. "Thank you for coming," she said. Daniel nodded. "You've got 10 minutes." Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him. "This is why Tommy did what he did." Daniel unfolded it. It was a printout of a news article from 6 months ago. The headline read, "Local man loses custody battle after false allegations." The photo showed Tommy younger, cleaner, smiling beside a little girl with pigtails. "That's his daughter," Sarah said quietly. "Lily, she's 5. Daniel scanned the article. Tommy's ex-girlfriend had accused him of being violent, of being unstable. The court believed her. Tommy lost custody, lost visitation rights, lost everything. The allegations were lies, Sarah continued. But by the time the truth came out, it was too late. The damage was done. Tommy fell apart, started drinking, stopped working, stopped caring. Daniel looked at her. And attacking a guard was supposed to fix that. No. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It was supposed to end it. Daniel's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "He wanted to get arrested. Wanted to do something so bad that he'd be locked up. because he couldn't handle being free anymore. Every day he woke up knowing his daughter was out there, and he couldn't see her, couldn't hold her, couldn't tell her he loved her.
House.
Daniel stared at the paper, at Tommy's smile, at the little girl's face. He told me the night before, Sarah whispered. He said he was going to the palace, said he was going to make them notice him. I thought he meant for a protest or something. I didn't think she covered her face with her hands. I didn't think he'd actually do it. Daniel felt a weight settle on his shoulders. Why are you telling me this? Because the court hearing is in 2 days. And if someone doesn't stand up for him, someone doesn't show the judge that Tommy isn't a monster, he's going to prison. And if he goes to prison, he'll never see his daughter again. What do you want from me? Sarah looked at him with desperate eyes. I want you to tell the truth. Not just what happened at the palace, but who Tommy was, who he still could be. You grew up with him. You know him. Daniel shook his head. I haven't seen him in years. We're not friends anymore. But you remember him, don't you? You remember the boy who wasn't broken yet? Daniel did. He remembered Tommy pulling him out of a fight in year 9, remembered him giving Daniel his last sandwich when his mom forgot to pack lunch, remembered him crying at his dad's funeral and trying to hide it. I'm not asking you to forgive him, Sarah said. I'm asking you to help him, because right now, you're the only person who can. Daniel stood up. He folded the paper and handed it back. I'll think about it. Sarah grabbed his hand. Her grip was tight, desperate. Please. He made a mistake, a terrible one. But he's still human. He's still someone's father. Daniel pulled his hand away gently. I said I'll think about it. He walked away, leaving Sarah on the bench. But the image of that little girl stayed with him. The way she smiled in the photo. The way she looked at her father like he was her whole world. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The punch. The blood. Tommy's broken voice. Sarah's tears. Lily's face. And he realized something. The world had already decided who Tommy was. A thug. A drunk. A criminal. The videos made sure of that. But Daniel knew the truth was more complicated. And maybe, just maybe, someone needed to say it out loud. The question was, did he have the courage to stand up for the man who had just attacked him? The courtroom was small and stuffy. The air smelled like old wood and nerves. Daniel sat in the back row, wearing his civilian clothes. He hadn't told anyone he was coming. Not his commanding officer. Not his friends. Not even Sarah. He wasn't sure why he was there. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something deeper. Tommy was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. His face was still bruised. His shoulders were slumped. He looked smaller than Daniel remembered, like the world had crushed him down into something fragile. Sarah sat in the front row. When she saw Daniel, her eyes widened. She mouthed the words, "Thank you." He still hadn't decided what he was going to do. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. The prosecutor went first. She laid out the facts coldly and efficiently. The defendant, Thomas Greaves, assaulted a member of the Kingsguard in broad daylight in front of dozens of witnesses. The attack was unprovoked. It was violent, and it was recorded on video for the world to see. She played the footage. The crowd gasped. The punch, the fall, the teeth skittering across the ground. This is not a man who made a mistake, the prosecutor continued. This is a man who chose violence, who endangered a service member, who disrespected the crown and this nation. Tommy stared at his hands. He didn't look up. The defense lawyer stood. He was young, overworked. He did his best. Your Honor, my client was intoxicated. He was experiencing severe emotional distress. He has no prior record of violence. This was an aberration, not a pattern. The judge looked unimpressed. An aberration that resulted in physical assault and public disorder. Yes, Your Honor, and my client deeply regrets his actions. He's willing to accept responsibility and seek help. Help won't undo what he did. The defense lawyer hesitated. No, Your Honor, but punishment without understanding won't help either. The judge leaned back. Do you have any witnesses to speak on behalf of the defendant? The lawyer glanced at his notes. We have a character witness. His sister, Sarah Greaves. Sarah stood. She walked to the witness stand, her hands shaking. She spoke about Tommy's childhood, his kindness, his struggles, his love for his daughter. The prosecutor objected twice. The judge allowed her to continue, but looked skeptical. When Sarah finished, the judge asked, Is there anyone else? The defense lawyer shook his head. No, Your Honor. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He could walk away right now. No one would blame him. He was the victim. He owed Tommy nothing. But then he thought about Lily, about that smile, about a little girl who would grow up wondering why her father was in prison. He stood. The courtroom went silent. The judge looked at him. Yes, do you have something to add? Daniel stepped forward. Your Honor, my name is Guardsman Daniel Reed. I'm the one who was assaulted. The prosecutor's eyes widened. The defense lawyer looked stunned. Tommy finally looked up, his face pale. The judge gestured to the witness stand. Approach. Daniel walked to the front. He placed his hand on the Bible. He swore to tell the truth. And then he sat down. The judge studied him. Guardsman Reed, why are you here? Daniel took a breath. Because I think there's more to this story than what's on that video. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The judge raised a hand. Let him speak. Daniel looked at Tommy, then at Sarah, then at the judge. Tommy Greaves and I grew up together. Same street. Same school. I haven't seen him in years. But I knew him when he was different, when he still had hope. And now? The judge asked. Now he's a man who's lost everything. His job, his family, his daughter. And instead of asking for help, he attacked me. That was wrong. I'm not excusing it. Then what are you doing? Daniel's voice steadied. I'm asking you to see him as more than one bad decision. Because if we only judge people by their worst moment, then none of us deserve a second chance. The courtroom was silent. The prosecutor looked frustrated. The defense lawyer looked hopeful. Tommy looked like he was about to break. The judge leaned forward. Do you believe he's a danger to society? No, Your Honor. I think he's a danger to himself. And I think locking him up without help won't fix that. What would you suggest? Daniel paused. Probation, community service, mandatory counseling, and a chance to rebuild his relationship with his daughter, because that's the only thing that's going to save him. The prosecutor objected again. The judge overruled her. Tommy's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we would accept those terms. The judge looked at Tommy. Mr. Greaves, do you have anything to say? Tommy stood slowly. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. To Guardsman Reed. To my sister. To my daughter. I'm so sorry. The judge studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke. Mr. Greaves, you assaulted a member of the King's Guard. That is a serious offense. But I've heard testimony today that suggests there are circumstances worth considering. I'm sentencing you to 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory alcohol treatment and counseling. And I'm ordering a review of your custody arrangement with a focus on supervised visitation. Sarah gasped. Tommy's knees buckled. The lawyer caught him. But let me be clear, the judge continued. If you violate any term of this sentence, you will serve the full prison term. Do you understand? Tommy nodded, tears streaming down his face. Yes, Your Honor, thank you. The judge looked at Daniel. Guardsman read, Thank you for your testimony. Your compassion speaks well of your character. Daniel nodded. He stood and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Outside, Sarah caught up to him. She was crying. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, Daniel stopped. I didn't do it for him. I did it for his daughter. But you saved him anyway. Daniel walked away. The cold air hit his face. His chest felt lighter. His hands stopped shaking. He had done the right thing. He was sure of it. But the story wasn't over. Because 3 months later, something would happen that would prove whether Tommy Greaves was truly worth saving. 3 months passed. Winter turned to spring. Daniel returned to his duties at the palace. The bruise faded. The videos stopped circulating. Life moved on. He didn't hear from Tommy, didn't hear from Sarah, and that was fine. He had done what he felt was right. The rest was up to them. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Daniel received a letter. It was handwritten. The return address was unfamiliar. He opened it. "Dear Danny, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll care. But I needed to write it anyway. I've been sober for 73 days. I go to meetings every night. I work at a warehouse loading trucks. It's hard. My back hurts. My hands blister. But I show up. Every single day. I've seen Lily twice. Supervised visits. 1 hour each time. She's bigger now. Talks more. She asked me where I've been. I told her I got lost for a while, but I'm finding my way back. I don't know if she believes me. I don't know if I believe me, but I'm trying. I think about that day at the palace a lot. I think about how angry I was, how empty, how ready to disappear, and I think about you, how you could have let me rot, how you could have walked away, but you didn't. You gave me a chance I didn't deserve, and I'm not going to waste it. I know I can't take back what I did. I know I hurt you. I embarrassed you. I made you a part of my mess. And I'm sorry. I'll always be sorry. But I wanted you to know that your words in that courtroom saved my life. Not just from prison, from myself. Thank you, Danny, for remembering who I used to be. And for believing I could be that person again. Your old friend Tommy Daniel read the letter twice. Then he folded it and put it in his pocket. He didn't cry, but his throat tightened. His chest felt warm. That night, he wrote back, not a long letter. Just a few lines. "Tommy, keep going. One day at a time. Your daughter is watching. Make sure she sees someone worth looking up to." Danny, he mailed it the next morning. Weeks turned into months. Daniel didn't hear from Tommy again. But he thought about him sometimes. Wondered if he was still sober, still working, still fighting. And then, 6 months after the courtroom, Daniel received a package. Inside was a drawing, crayon, on construction paper. It showed a man in a red uniform standing tall. Beside him was a little girl holding his hand. At the top, in wobbly letters, it said, "Thank you for helping my daddy. Love, Lily." Daniel stared at it for a long time. Then he pinned it to his fridge. 2 weeks later, Daniel was on duty again at the palace. Same post. Same uniform. Same job. A family approached the gate. A man, a woman, and a little girl with pigtails. The man looked familiar. Cleaner, healthier, stronger. It was Tommy. He was holding Lily's hand. She pointed at the guards and giggled. Tommy smiled. Then he looked up and saw Daniel. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Tommy placed his hand over his heart. A silent gesture. A wordless thank you. Daniel gave the smallest nod. Just enough to be seen. Tommy's face softened. He squeezed his daughter's hand and walked on. Daniel watched them go. The little girl skipped beside her father, laughing, pointing at the flags. And Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, because that day outside Buckingham Palace, the two men collided. One was drowning. One was standing firm. And in that single brutal moment, a choice was made. Not to destroy, but to save. Not to punish, but to understand, not to forget the past, but to believe in the future, and sometimes that's all it takes. One person willing to see beyond the worst moment, one person willing to extend a hand instead of a fist. Daniel Reed didn't feel like a hero. He never did. But in the eyes of a little girl who got her father back, he was, and maybe that was enough. The rain started to fall. The tourists scattered. Daniel stood tall, unmoving, as he always did. But this time, he carried something new with him. A reminder that even in the hardest moments, even when everything seems broken, there's still a chance for redemption, For Tommy, for Lily, for anyone willing to fight for it. And as the gates of Buckingham Palace closed for the evening, and the lights of London flickered to life, Daniel Reed smiled, just a little, just enough.